Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning. The subject we have this morning before us is a very familiar subject to those who have been in Vedanta for a long time. It's the metaphor of the two birds. The subject is the two birds and how this whole concept of a tree and two birds sitting on it, it encapsulates our life as we experience it now, the possibility of spiritual freedom and how we can get that spiritual freedom and what we get out of it, all of that beautifully, the two birds. So let's go straight into the subject. The reference is to the Mundaka Upanishads. The Upanishads we know are the core texts of Vedanta. And in the Mundaka Upanishad, one of the most ancient of the Upanishads, in the third chapter, 3.1.1 and 3.1.2, we find this thing described using the metaphor of the two birds and the tree. The original verses, the mantras go like this. I'll chant them out for you in the old Vedic Sanskrit, and then I'll translate, and then we'll go into it. So it goes something like this. Dva suparna sayuja sakhaya samanam vriksham parishasvajate tayoranyah pippalam swadvatti anashnananyo abhichakashiti samanam vriksham purusho nimagno anishaya shochati muhyamana jushtam yada pasyatyanyamisham asya mahimanam iti vita shoka. Very poetic. What does it mean? There is a tree, and on this tree there are two birds, the lower bird and the higher bird. And what the lower bird does is, it hops from branch to branch and looks at different fruits and pecks at one and finds it sweet, eats it up, looks for another one, pecks it, that's a little bitter, gets a little taken aback, tries to eat something else, eating bitter and sweet fruits like this until it comes to a particularly bitter fruit, and getting the shock of its life, it stops eating for a while, takes a step back, looks up and sees the higher bird. The higher bird sitting somewhere up there, quietly, not hopping around from branch to branch and not chasing the fruits, not eating this fruit or that fruit. Anashnan, not consuming. It just abhichakashit, it watches. It just shines there. The higher bird, peaceful, calm, unchanging. And the lower bird looking up at that thinks, that's wonderful. And it gets attracted towards it and hops up towards the higher bird. But then what happens? As it happens, it sees another particularly attractive fruit. Okay, the higher bird can wait, it's there, let me just take a look at this. And eats it and finds it sweet, it's nice. And forgets the higher bird. And then goes from fruit to fruit until it gets another shock and looks up at the higher bird and makes some more progress towards it. And that's the story of our spiritual lives really. We are attracted. And who wouldn't really want to be a saint? You want to be a saint. But only without the trouble that goes with it. There's a saying in ancient Sanskrit which says that everybody wants the result of good karma, but they don't want to do the good karma. Everybody wants to enjoy the sin, but they don't want the bad karma that comes from the sin. So this is how the little bird it hops from fruit to fruit and forgets the higher bird, but ultimately it gets such a terrible shock one day, maybe something, the death of a beloved person or one's own imminent death. A fatal disease has come up, and such a big shock, a particularly really bitter fruit, and then it sort of withdraws from that life of pecking and seeking and tasting this or that, and now moves deliberately towards the higher bird, purposefully. And finally, when it comes closer to the higher bird, something strange happens. The lower bird begins to get transformed. It sees that it's more and more like the higher bird. The higher bird, which is described as golden and shining, Suparna, golden and shining. And the lower bird also begins to see itself as that, radiant in the light of the higher bird. And in the end, lo and behold, the lower bird sees itself as the higher bird. There is no lower bird at all. And in fact, there never was. This is the game of Maya. There never was the lower bird. It was the higher bird all along, dreaming the life of the lower bird. So the higher bird alone remains. So that's as far as the metaphor goes. And it's a beautiful way, poetic way of explaining life, spirituality, spiritual seeking, the culmination of spirituality, the path of spiritual progress. All of that, you find it so beautifully in this example. Come on up here. There are chairs here. Come. But today what we will do is, we will take a closer look at this. Let's take the time available to us and go in depth into this. Go deeper into this. What is the tree, and what is the lower bird, and what is the higher bird? And how does it relate to our lives? How does it explain the whole of Vedanta? That's what we're going to do this morning. The menu is very rich in front of us now. So, Vedanta is the science of the human being in depth. This is what Swami Ranganathananji used to say. The science of the human being in depth. Who are we really in our deepest nature, in our real nature? That's what Vedanta seeks to investigate. And it starts with the most obvious, most apparent fact of our personality, the body. So the first component that we have to look at is, here is the body. And in this example, in the higher bird, lower bird example, the two birds example, the body is compared to a tree. This is a tree in which there is man and there is God. There is the lower bird and there is the higher bird. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, within this there are two. There is the divine mother and her child, the devotee. In this body, he used to say, right here, there are two. So, the physical body, that's the first component of the human personality. In this particular example in the Upanishad, it is compared to the tree. As we go deeper into the physical body, as we look inside, we find what is called a subtle body. Physical body in Sanskrit, sthula shariram. Subtle body in Sanskrit, sukshma shariram. As we go inside, we find a subtle body. Remember, the subtle body is nothing theoretical, nothing that you have to believe in, no theoretical construct. Yeah. It's something that we experience. Physical body, here it is. Subtle body, look inside, thoughts, emotions, feelings. Physical body, I can show you. Here's the hand. My thoughts or my memory or my intellect, I cannot show it to you physically. But for me, the subject within, it's a first-person experience. I can directly experience, all of us experience our own thoughts, our memories, our feelings. In fact, we experience it most vividly. Come. There are chairs here, up ahead. Come. Here. So the subtle body is something that we experience. In Vedanta, the subtle body is analyzed into having no less than 17 components. None of them is something that you have to believe in or theoretical. I'll just point them out to you and you'll say, yes, it's true, it's there. What are the 17 components? The 5 sense organs, our organs of sight, the eyes, and hearing, the ears, and taste, the tongue, and the skin, which enables us to touch and feel, and the nose, which gives us the sense of smell. So 5 sense organs, that's 5. And the 5 motor organs, the organs of the hands, the legs, the organs of locomotion, organ of speech, reproduction, and elimination. So the 5 motor organs, that makes 10. And the prana, the life forces within us, that which is responsible for the physiological processes which keep this body alive, breathing, blood circulation, assimilation of food, conversion of food into the physical body and into energy. All of this, the physiological processes going on in this body, they are powered by what is called prana. In Sanskrit, prana. In Chinese, they call it chi. So prana, the life forces. It's like a battery pack which keeps this system going. The engine, the powerhouse. And in Vedanta, the prana, the life forces, are analyzed into 5 different functions. Prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. Each of them physiological functions which are clearly identified. We need not go into the details, but 5 are there. 5 functions of the prana. So they are called the pancha prana. How many do we have so far? 15. The 5 sense organs, the 5 motor organs, the 5 pranas. Remember, when we speak about sense organs or motor organs, we are not actually speaking of the physical eyes or the physical ears, because physical eyes and ears are parts of the physical body. That's already in the physical body, sthula sharira. Now we are in the subtle body, sukshma sharira. These are the powers, the functions which work through these physical organs. So 5 sense organs, 5 motor organs, and the 5 pranas, pancha prana. We have 15. And 2 more. The mind, thoughts, emotions, and the intellect, that which we are using to understand all this. The intellect, the capacity for cognition, understanding. So the intellect and the mind, buddhi and manas, that makes 17. Each of these 17 is nothing new. Vedanta is not telling us anything new here. Vedanta is just labeling, just identifying these 17 components, which we all should say, yes, I have those. Here, in classical Vedanta, sometimes you find the inner instrument, antakarana, analyzed into 4 parts. The mind, the intellect, the ego, and the memory. Mana, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. So if you make 4 parts, then the total becomes 19. If you just make 2, mind and intellect, the total becomes 17. Whatever, 19 or 17, basically it is a subtle body. The difference between the subtle body and the physical body being, the physical body is perceivable. You can see it. And it's public, that I can see it, you can see it also. But the subtle body is experienced by me or by you directly within, as a first person experience. Nobody else can experience the subtle body unless the person is a telepath who can read your thoughts. Other than that, your subtle body is visible to you, the consciousness. Now that's not the end of the story. Subtle body is there, and Vedanta says deeper than that, Vedanta speaks of something called the causal body, karana sharira. Sthula sharira, physical body, here. Sukshma sharira, subtle body, inside us. First person, we directly experience. Deeper than that, Vedanta speaks of another body, body within quotes, karana sharira, causal body. What is this causal body? Again, nothing theoretical. It's what we experience in deep sleep. When you go to sleep, in deep sleep, you do not experience your physical body, you do not experience the world outside. You do not experience the physical body. You do not even experience the mind, no thoughts. In dreams, at least, the mind is experienced because the mind creates a dream world. But when there are no dreams, deep sleep, mind is also not experienced. Even I am sleeping, this I, the ego, that is also not experienced. That blankness, the state of blankness, that is called the causal body, the karana sharira. That is actually in Vedanta the ignorance, the causal ignorance which hides our true nature from us. So that is the karana sharira. the causal body. What do we have so far? We have the physical body, which is compared to the tree in this mantra, and then we have the subtle body of 17 parts, and we have the causal body. And in this subtle body and causal body, there is an awareness. There is an awareness. Right now we feel sentient. We feel aware. Not only do we have thoughts, but we are aware of our thoughts. We feel an intelligence, an awareness, a consciousness in this body and mind. That awareness, sentience which we feel right now, that is not pure consciousness which Vedanta will speak about, but that is the reflected consciousness. That is called Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. So if we have one more thing, a fourth component called the Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. And if there is a reflected consciousness, there must be the original, the one which is being reflected, which is called the witness consciousness. Pure consciousness, witness consciousness, that, do come, there is a chair here. Yeah. So now we have 5 factors, 5 elements. What are the 5 elements? One is the physical body. One is the subtle body with 17 parts. One is the causal body, the ignorance of the darkness which hides our real nature from us. And one is the awareness reflected in the causal and subtle bodies. The awareness, the sentience which we feel right now, the Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. And finally, the point of all of this, the higher bird, is the pure consciousness, or what Vedanta would call the witness consciousness, Sakshi. In Sanskrit, Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, Chidabhasa, Sakshi. That's quite a list. But at least the first four, we should be able to identify straight away. Right now, while sitting here, we should be able to identify. Here is the physical body. Look inside. Yes, here is the subtle body. My breathing, prana, my thoughts, the mind, sense organs, motor organs, the subtle body. Beyond that, if you try to think beyond thought, you would run up against a blank wall. Right now, without going into deep sleep, that blankness beyond thought is the causal body, Karana Sharira. And the awareness which is shining through all of this, Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. And Vedanta says, right here, there is something called a witness consciousness. Pure consciousness or witness consciousness, Sakshi Chaitanya. That witness consciousness, now let's fit it into the example of the 2 birds. The body is, of course, the tree. And that witness consciousness, which Vedanta speaks about, that is not yet clear to us, evident to us, or not known to us yet. If it is known, you are lucky. You don't need to attend this talk. But that is, according to Vedanta, that's what we truly are. Come. Come. So, according to Vedanta, that witness consciousness is what we truly are, and the lower bird, that's the interesting part. What is the lower bird in this structure, in this 5 component structure of the human personality? The lower bird is the intermediate 3. Body is the tree, and the lower bird is the subtle body, the causal body, and the reflected consciousness. Subtle body, causal body, reflected consciousness. Remember, the moment we speak about the reflected consciousness, the witness consciousness is also implied. Moment you speak about moonlight, the presence of the sun is also implied, though we don't see it. Because without the sun, there's no moonlight. The moment you speak about our reflection, my reflected face in the mirror, the original face is also implied. Because without the original face, nothing would be reflected there. So when we speak about a reflected consciousness, which we are aware of right now, which we are using right now, in Vedanta, it's always helpful to ground what is being said in our personal experience. So what we are experiencing right now and what I'm saying from here, they're not two different things. I'm just labeling at every step, see if it corresponds with what we are experiencing. So the awareness which we have right now in this body and mind, that reflected consciousness, it means the pure consciousness or witness consciousness is present right now. Otherwise, what is being reflected? So the lower bird is this one. The subtle body, causal body, reflected consciousness, and witness consciousness implied. Higher bird is the witness consciousness alone. So now the picture is complete. Now what happens? The lower bird feels conscious and has a mind and an intellect and the sense organs and is in this body and fully identified with this body. Now it sees these fruits hanging all around, good and bad, and it does not know itself in its perfect nature, finds itself imperfect, subject to disease and old age and death and so forth. And it wants completion by the experience of things. It sees itself as an experiencer. I have eyes. I am consciousness with a mind and an eyes and ears, so I can see things, I can hear things. I have tongue, I can taste things. And each of these experiences is giving me some kind of joy or sometimes misery. So it becomes what is called in Sanskrit bhokta, experiencer. Who becomes the bhokta, experiencer? The lower bird, because it is that reflected consciousness with the sense organs. It also becomes karta, the doer. The lower bird becomes a doer, an agent of action, because it has got hands and legs and tongue. I can grasp things, I can use my legs to walk around, I have got a tongue to speak, so I do actions. So the lower bird is a karta and bhokta, a doer and an experiencer. Sometimes bhokta is translated as enjoyer, but enjoyer does not quite capture the whole thing. Most of our experiences are not very enjoyable. Usually it's a mixture of enjoyment and misery. So here is, what do I find myself as? Here is the world, and I am seeing the world with my eyes. Here is my body with my eyes and sense organs. I'm experiencing the body and sense organs with my mind. And I am this consciousness in the mind which experiences the mind directly. This creature, what we see ourselves, normally we see ourselves as this. This is what is called the lower bird. And Shankaracharya in his commentary uses this phrase, avidya kama karma. Not knowing ourselves as the higher bird, that is just something theoretical, or we are not even aware of it. We think this is the reality. And then desire is born. I want this, I don't want that. And from this desire is born action. What I want, I desperately work to get it. What I don't want, I desperately work to avoid it. And from action is born the result of action, karma phala, karma. And from the result of action comes our life and death. Because we have results of action, we must get these results of action in this body. Once this body is exhausted, this body dies, the lower bird flies off to another body. It gets another body. For what? For getting the results of the actions which it has done in previous bodies. So it's trapped in this cycle of birth and death. That's what happens to it. The second verse, Samanam Vriksham Purusho Nimagna, it explains the human predicament. What happens to us? First of all, Nimagna, we are immersed in this body. Nimagna literally means immersed, which is holding on tightly. We think we are this body. Immersed means identified. Whatever philosophy we read, whatever Vedanta we practice, in the state of ignorance, our status is, I am this body. Yes, I have a mind, I am a body with a mind. I have consciousness, I am a body with a mind and consciousness. But I am this body. I think that, I feel that, and I act like that. That's how I arrange my life. This is called nimagna, being identified, holding onto the body as me. This is who I am. As a result of that, what happens? Every problem of the body becomes my problem. Pain in the body, it's hurting, my pain. I was thinking that we are concerned about the great issues of the day, the war in the Middle East or environmental degradation. We are concerned, and we ought to be concerned about the problems, the big questions in the world today. But a single pinprick in my big toe draws more attention immediately, causes more misery to me without any kind of thought than even the biggest ethnic massacre thousands of miles away in the Middle East or somewhere. It's because our attention, our whole conception about ourselves is completely body-centric. So every problem of the body becomes my problem. The body is subject to birth and growth, existence, growth, the sixfold changes Vedanta speaks about. Jayate, born. Asti, comes into existence. Vardhate, grows, develops. Child and teenager, young person. So far, so good. All good news. Then viparinamate, you hit. I was having some physical problems. I went to the doctor. Tummy problems and all. The doctor said, "You are fine, Swami. You just hit the 40s. Welcome to the 40s." And then the 50s. And then comes apakshiyate, deterioration. Up to the teenagers, whether they say it or not, they feel it's just going to be like this and it's going to get better, or it's not. In a medical conference, the doctor said, nowadays we have come to the level where we can ensure that you live long, but we cannot ensure that you live well. You can live long, you can suffer longer than usual. So, apakshiyate, body deteriorates. You can manage the deterioration. Surely you can manage the deterioration. If you live healthily, gluten-free, and then yes, it's not a bad thing. You do a lot of exercise and eat a lot of greens and be gluten-free and whatnot. And then once one person told me, you're going to California, so I'm in India. This person is an American. So they are very fond of health food there. And you have to eat healthy. I said, how do I know what's healthy? He said, one very simple criterion. If it's tasteless, it's healthy. If it tastes good, it's bad for you. And what are you trying to manage by all this? All this big effort. What are we trying to manage? The inevitable, unavoidable decay, degeneration, and destruction of the tree, the body. Yes, it's good for you to lead a healthy life. The slogan, gluten-free is good for you. I was driving down here, Hollywood Boulevard, back to the center here, and I saw this big billboard which says, gluten-free vodka. And I thought, yeah, that's good for you. But the point is this, we are trying to manage the inevitable destruction of the body. So this is what happens when you are holding on to the body. And we hold on to the subtle body. This is just the gross body, the physical body. The subtle body is there. Every problem of the subtle body becomes my problem. Somebody said a word which is insulting me. I feel insulted. The feeling of insult and hurt and humiliation in the mind. I am insulted, humiliated, and hurt. And I rage throughout the day. But it's the mind. It's not you. If that's not clear, just think about it. The moment you go to sleep, moment the mind switches off, where is the hurt? Where is the humiliation? It was in the mind. I identified with the mind. It's my problem. And I go on and on and on. A single blow to the head, amnesia, forgotten all problems. So, identified with the mind, it becomes mind's problems become my problem. There's a boy standing in the drain. You don't have open drains here, luckily. But in some old cities in India, there are still open drains. A boy standing in the open drain says, it's so smelly here, dirty and smelly. Just come out of the drain. You can't complain standing in the drain that it's dirty and smelly there. So standing in this body and mind, I say, oh, there is physical problems and disease, and I have to go to the doctor, and my Medicare doesn't cover this, and there are problems of the mind. He or she said such things to me, and I'll hold that on. The most precious thing in the world, my insult. Person has insulted me. Yeah. We love our friends, but we love our enemies also. We hold on to them with such great effort. So all of this, nimagna, associated, I am this. Good, the bad, the ugly, all of it is me. And as a result of that, shochati, suffering comes. Depression, fear, anxiety. What's going to happen next? Regret. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Past. And the future, anxiety. Or expectation. Something good will happen. All of that comes because of this. Sochati means suffering, a result of identification with the body. And he says, anishaya, helpless. We very soon realize how helpless we are. Our desires far outstrip our capacity. In fact, the first lesson we learned when we start studying economics, I remember the first thing they taught us in the economics class is, what is economics? It's trying to match the limited resources, scarce resources, with unlimited wants. So we have unlimited wants and scarce resources. And how do you allocate that? The whole subject of economics. They called it the dismal science that is born there. And so this problem comes, helplessness. We are physically helpless. We don't know how vulnerable our bodies are. I remember many years ago sitting at the breakfast table with a martial arts master, one of the most impressive persons I've ever seen, physically, in the sense a very ordinary, quiet, calm looking person, very ordinary looking person, and extremely deadly person. He was sitting there and he says to me, just here from this position, without getting up, I was thinking, there are 4 ways I can kill you right now. And he'll make the hair, the back of your neck crawl when you look at him. He had very strange eyes, like kind of golden brown eyes. Very interesting, but so delicate. Our bodies are so delicate, helpless, physically helpless, and then much more so when it comes to mind. Our minds are so prone. Swami Vivekananda said, slaves, that's what we are all. Slave to a good word, slave to a bad word. Just one single something from the world outside, and it throws our minds into the greatest turmoil. Little word of praise, and we are floating in the clouds. Little word of criticism, and we burn up with fury and resentment. Slave. Helplessness. Even more so when you come to relationships. When you extend it beyond yourself. Imagine, one person was telling me, Swami, you are lucky. At the most, the suffering that can affect you is the suffering of your own body. You are a monk. But imagine the truth, imagine the condition of a father or a mother whose child is suffering. And if it's a congenital problem, a chronic problem, you cannot do anything about the child's suffering. You cannot do anything. You can only make it a little better, but it will again become worse. And so it becomes a lifelong struggle. I know such parents who have children who have problems, who cannot take care of themselves, and the parents struggle and suffer and suffer. Maybe they are suffering more than the children themselves. And they are worried, after we are gone, who will take care of this boy or girl? So the suffering of another, helpless, completely helpless. So our life, anishaya, helplessness, and deluded, muhyamana, he says, we are deluded. Deluded how? What we do is, we try to make things better by changing things. First of all, we try to, we are suffering, we are in trouble, let us see how do we get out of trouble. In our delusion, we think by making a change in our life, things will solve the problem. iPhone 6, iPhone 7. Make a change? Yes. I'll replace the Honda with Tesla and all the problems will be solved. My problems, the problems of environment, problems of the world, it'll be solved. This naive belief that technology will solve our problem. It does, but not the fundamental problem of human existence. That this deep, perpetual dissatisfaction. People leading lives of quiet desperation. That has never been solved. You see, we have come a long way. Why only a Honda and a Tesla? We have come a long way in the 100 years from the Ford Model T to the Tesla. And what problem has it solved? It has solved, it made Ford rich. It's making Elon Musk rich. But ultimately, does it solve the fundamental problem of human nature? No. By making external changes, we change the house. Go from the suburbs to a seafront view. Or you move from, say, New York to California. Nice weather. So you make a change. External life. Does it solve the problem? No. So, okay, it doesn't solve the problem, but we really must change ourselves. Then only the problem will be solved. Better idea. So you try to change family members, husband, wife, children. Very difficult, impossible. It's so difficult to change ourselves. How can we expect to change anybody else? Children are a headache. A doctor told me recently that he has had this problem with a lot of grown-ups sitting quietly in the bathroom. And he asked them why. And they said they are hiding from the children. The little terrors. Now, it's almost impossible to change others. We have an enormous weight of earlier lives, the samskaras. It's very difficult to change ourselves. How can you change anybody else? Very difficult. You must try, you must set a good example, say what is necessary to say, but otherwise you cannot. The old story of the dog's curly tail. The person was doing great meditation in order to fulfill his desires, and a ghost appeared before him and said, or his guru gave him a mantra. When you use this mantra, the ghost will appear, but remember, you have to keep the ghost engaged. Otherwise, you will be in danger. Basically, the ghost is our mind. So the ghost appears before this man and says, I'll fulfill all your desires. Tell me what do you want? Oh, great. I want some nice food. Immediately, it's done. Quick, tell me what you want. If you don't tell me, I'll kill you. It's the mind, basically, You keep it engaged in a right pursuit, it will do something for you. If you don't keep it engaged in the right pursuit, it will destroy you. And he says, okay, build me a house. That will keep it engaged. Seconds later, the house was made. Build me a big business. Minutes later, the business was made. Now this guy is getting scared. A ghost comes up. Tell me, quick. Otherwise, I'm going to wring your neck. And this person went running to his guru and fell at his guru's feet and said, oh, what a terrible trouble I am in. I'm sorry I asked you for that mantra. But the ghost is chasing him and arriving at the ashram. Help me, it's going to kill me. I can't think of anything else that I want. And the guru said, there is that dog. Tell the ghost to straighten out the dog's curly tail. And the man said, you straighten out the dog's curly tail. And the ghost went and carefully straightened it out. And that's easy. The moment it let go, the curly tail became like this again. And the ghost went and tried it again, and then it again became like this. And the ghost was taken aback. I am the most powerful ghost in the universe. And I can do anything. But this is what terrible trouble I am in. I've never found such a task like this. And kept on straightening it out. So again, the dog's curly tail became curled up. And that's what it's still doing. And the man is safe. That's what it is, trying to change the world. It won't. And then this is how life goes on until, it says yada, until by some great good fortune, maybe our past karma, maybe the blessings of the guru or whatever, we come across spiritual life. A real solution to the human problem comes. Jushtam yada pashyati anyamesham, that the mantra says. Maybe the guru comes and tells us about spiritual life, or you come across somebody said, I was here for so many years and I didn't know about this place, Vedanta Society. I said, okay, come and attend the class, attend the talk. So until that point comes and the possibility reveals itself. What is the possibility? the spiritual teacher, the guru, or the Upanishad, it comes and tells you something very interesting. It says, all this trouble you are in, the mess you are in, right here in this body, there is one who is above all this trouble eternally. Try to find that out. There is this higher bird. The existence of this higher bird is pointed out by the guru. Initially, it may be in the terms of dualistic religion. The non-dualistic religion, Advaita Vedanta says, you are God. You are one with Brahman. You are pure consciousness. You are the higher bird. But one may not start there. One may start with, there is an untroubled existence. I'll call it God, Nirvana, heaven, Vishnu, Shiva, Kali, something different from me. See, this verse is very popular with the dualistic school of Vedanta. Why? Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya. There are two in this body. There are two, the lower bird and the higher bird. The dualistic school immediately points that out. Look, two, not one. So God and the living creature, the individual being, the jiva, we are different. So you can start like that. The word used here is Jushtam, the adorable one. The higher consciousness, the higher bird, the witness consciousness within us, instead of straight away trying to say, I am that, we can conceive of it as God. Right here, we can adore it, we can worship it, we can meditate upon it. And the whole of dualistic religion in the Vedantic conception of things is based upon this idea. Our own reality, the higher bird, start by noticing it, by believing in it, by worshipping it, by thinking about it. And this is how spiritual life starts. As we go a little deeper, we begin to realize, the Guru shows us, Vedanta shows us, you are not the body. You are not even the mind, not even the sense organs, not even the intellect, not even the consciousness reflected in this. You are the pure consciousness which is being reflected, which is working through this body and mind. You are not the lower bird, you are the higher bird. And as we go through this process, the different techniques, an entire range of spiritual practice comes before us. Directly, we cannot realize ourselves as the higher bird. It's very difficult. You see, even though we may get an inkling of it in the Vedanta talk, the moment you leave this hall and go back into the freeway, the higher bird has disappeared. It's all lower bird. You say, Swami, what happened to me? I think I am a bird brain. It's because the mind is not prepared. The lower bird must be prepared for the understanding. One preparation comes through work, through experience, by pecking the different fruits of the world. Vedanta is very relaxed about it. It doesn't say you have to believe in anything. Doesn't even say you have to follow this, you have to do this, otherwise doesn't threaten you with hell or punishment. Nothing like that. You want the world and want to experience the world, go ahead, it's there, it's meant for your experience. Go right ahead. We have got lots of time. Rather tongue-in-cheek, Swami Vivekananda says, take all the time that you want. Take your life, take many lives. That's what we have been doing. And if you feel that it's not working out, it's just more of the same thing, variations of the same theme. That's what life is. Then we say we are there every Sunday. We are open at 11. Come. And we are shown step by step. First, work. How you transform work done with desire for my own experience and enjoyment into work done as service, as worship, karma yoga. How we prepare the mind for this higher knowledge through worship, through ritual, through prayer, and through meditation. Sanskrit name for this is upasana. How we conceive of the higher bird in our imagination and meditate upon it with the help of mantras, visualization, and so many things. And as the mind becomes prepared, then comes the Vedantic teaching itself. That thou art, that higher bird which you are worshipping, which you have believed in so far, which you are trying to meditate upon, you are that. You are that. You see, it's like when I look at my face in the mirror, what I see is the mirror and a reflected face. I do not see my original face. And suppose I've forgotten my original face, I think that's who I am, the face in the mirror. What Vedanta is trying to do is carefully trying to take me from the face in the mirror back to my original face. The problem there is I cannot see my original face directly. I can see it only in the mirror. The reflected face is the reflected consciousness. Witness consciousness, original face. And the Upanishad says, Sakhaya, the two are friends. The higher bird and lower bird are friends. They help each other. How do they help each other? It is something worth understanding here. Higher bird, pure consciousness, is existence, consciousness, bliss. What does it do? It lends existence and consciousness to the whole of creation. So it's here with the metaphor breaks down. You can't extend the metaphor too far. It's the pure consciousness, the higher bird, the witness, Sakshi Chaitanya. Because of this, we have awareness. Because of that pure consciousness, you are able to hear what I am saying. You are able to see all this. You are able to think. You are able to feel. You are able to remember. You are able to enjoy and you are able to suffer. Because of that pure consciousness. That alone is shining through, percolating through the mind and the intellect and enabling all this experience. And what does the lower bird do for the higher bird? The lower bird also does something for the higher bird. The mirror example is very interesting. The reflected face can exist only because of the original face. Original face gives the reflected face its existence. But what does the reflected face do for the original face? It makes it manifest. I am able to see as an object what is not an object. That is objectified, enabling me to experience it as, oh, I am like this. As long as I think I am like this, perfectly all right. This is equal to me saying the lower birds realizing I am the higher bird. I was reflected as the lower bird. I am existence, consciousness, bliss, functioning through body and mind as this individual person. Then it's all right, enlightened. But when I do not realize the higher bird at all, when I do not realize the pure consciousness, witness consciousness at all, and I think I am the body and mind, consciousness in a body and mind, it's like thinking, oh, I am this face in the mirror. I am not this face in the mirror. This face in the mirror is a reflection, is given existence by my original face, just as the consciousness which we feel right now is a reflection of who you are. If this little step you can take, mirror to original face, right now, if you can take the little step from consciousness in the mind to you yourself, that would be enlightenment. It's worth meditating upon. One Swami, he told me how he practiced in Himalayas. He was regarded as an enlightened person. He says in the morning walk he would go and mentally, as he would vigorously walk back and forth on the bank of the Ganges, he would chant mentally, Asmadrupe Chidagno Vishwam Juhomi Swaha. What does that mean? In the ancient fire sacrifice of the Hindus, you would pour some oblation into the fire. There's a fire and you pour oblation. You're giving offerings to the fire. To the fire. So swaha is the word by which you say, I offer thus this offering into the fire. It's usually clarified butter or something. Now that paradigm he's taking and he's saying, in the fire of consciousness that I am, I offer the oblation of the universe. Whatever I experience, the world out there, the body, other people, all these experiences, I am continuously offering as an oblation into the fire of consciousness, which I am. Think about it. What a thrilling way of looking at the experience of the world. Whatever you do, whatever you see, whatever you eat, whatever experience you have, good, bad and ugly, it's an oblation into the fire of consciousness. You're pouring it into the fire. Literally, it's being poured into you, isn't it? Here I am, the fire of consciousness. And every experience is something that is being poured into me. And he used to practice like that. Until the realization comes, I am that consciousness. So the mirror makes that consciousness, makes the invisible face visible. The reflected consciousness, the little being, makes that pure consciousness tangible, experienceable, transactional. You can actually do something in the world, but you are not it. What does the original consciousness do for the reflected consciousness? It gives it its very existence. Without it, without the original, the witness consciousness, the reflected consciousness would not exist at all. The little person would not be there at all. So this shifting of who am I from the consciousness trapped in this body and mind to the original consciousness, the witness consciousness, that which is being reflected in the mirror of the consciousness, the original, this shifting is Vedanta. This is the thing, the shifting of the I from the lower bird to the higher bird. Then what happens? Asya mahimanam iti vita shoka. Very beautiful. Then our whole view of the world changes. Earlier world, life was a struggle and strife. Somehow trying to stay up, make do in this world. Trying not to be a bad person, trying to be a good person, trying not to be a failure and a loser, trying to be successful in this life, all defining ourselves as the lower bird. And a perpetual struggle doomed to death. And repeat next life, and repeat next life. That is transformed. The tree and the lower bird and the fruits and the entire forest, in fact, is seen as the glory of the higher bird. It all belongs to the higher bird. It's the field of experience of the higher bird. You as the higher bird, you as pure consciousness, you are not subject to death. The body dies, you are not subject to death. Nothing of you dies when the body dies. You are not subject to disappointment, frustration, none of that. All of those things come and go in the mind, and the moment you realize yourself as the unchanging consciousness, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham, I am of the nature of bliss and consciousness, of the nature of Shiva. The moment we realize ourselves as that, then the mind itself also will not be subject to frustrations and disappointments. Life becomes a joy. This entire universe is seen as the glory of the Atman, of the witness consciousness. That itself is shining forth as this entire universe. It becomes a joy. Enjoyment is joyful. Even the so-called suffering of the world is joyful. Sri Ramakrishna, in cancer, Hari Maharaj says that, Sir, how are you today? Oh, I'm suffering so much, pain is there. And then Hari Maharaj says, but I see, sir, that you are in great bliss. What a cruel thing to say to a cancer patient. And Sri Ramakrishna bursts out into laughter and he says, oh, the rascal has caught me out. The rascal has caught me out. The rascal has caught me out. Caught me out means it's true that I am in bliss. Even in the midst of cancer, when the body is deteriorating and is going to die, and there is actually pain. When the body is deteriorating and there is a disease, there will pain. There also pain will be there. But I am beyond it all. I experience it, yet transcend it. That's the mystery. And it's not that we do not understand it. We intuitively get a feel for it. Yes, it's possible. It's like, here is the mirror, and I am reflected in this mirror, and the mirror gets dirty or cracked. The reflection also gets dirty or cracked, obscured. But that is nothing to me, the original face which is being reflected there. Exactly like that, the idea, the feeling becomes very strong in all of this. It's a passing show in the consciousness which I am. So, this very world of suffering and struggle which the lower bird was engaged in, it now becomes a kingdom of heaven, a place of glory and joy and light. That's the true nature of our experience. It's because of ignorance, the distance between the lower bird and the higher bird. It is shown as the bird is hopping from tree to tree. But the distance is not a physical distance. You don't have to go anywhere to find the higher bird. It's right here. It's you. You don't have to wait to find the higher bird. You believe this, you keep coming every Sunday to Vedanta. After you die, you will find Brahman. No. There is no gap of time. There is no gap of space. It's right here, you yourself. It's right now, you yourself. The difference then, what is the difference? If that is so, then why are we in this state? The difference is, the journey is only from ignorance to knowledge. From not knowing to knowing. From not realizing to realizing. That's the journey. And once we do that, the result comes. We see ourselves as infinite and immortal, above, beyond human suffering. Life will continue, but life will be, then we will be Jivan Mukta, enlightened, free or liberated while living. It's the whole scope of Vedanta, the entire range of Vedanta we are speaking about in these two verses. We have a question-answer session coming up, Q&A session, where we can dwell more deeply about these and other questions. So let me conclude here. I'll end with a chant, my favorite peace chant, Purnamada Purnamidam. And let's see if we can understand it in terms of the two birds. That's not usually how it is understood, but you can actually. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Literally it means that Brahman is infinite. This manifestation is also infinite. This infinite has come from that infinite. In this infinite, if you can recognize that infinite alone remains. But if you see it this way, you see how beautifully it fits the two birds. That higher bird is infinite, and this lower bird is in reality that higher bird. This lower bird is an appearance of that higher bird. In this lower bird, here and now, if you recognize the higher bird alone remains. Oh, peace, peace, peace. It's really wonderful.